Hi, I'm Howard Holton, and this is another episode of Discovering Disruptions in Tech. This week, I'm here with Zeev from Armis, and we are at Hacker Summer Camp, aka Blackhat. Zeev, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure thing, yeah. So I'm Zeev out of Fair, Virginia. I work at Armis. I run both our SE org and our CTO org. And I've been here for almost 7 years now.
Nice. You've been at Armis for 7 years?
I have, yeah. It's been a great ride.
That's a long time at one cyber organization, right?
When you find the right place.
That's what I was going to say. That says good things about the culture, right?
Yeah.
So we're at Blackhat in, I would say, lovely Las Vegas, but that would be a terrible, terrible lie. Las Vegas gets lovely in December.
Exactly.
Right?
Nothing is lovely in August. Yeah.
No,
Alaska, maybe.
Alaska. Well, I think it's 112 degrees out right now.
As long as we're not outside.
Right. So this is not your first time at Blackhat?
Yeah, not my first time. I try to come every few years or so, not every year. I think obviously Blackhat has become commercialized. We all know that. Sure. We're trying to get the best out of it, even so. But yeah, it's great to come every few years. It's a great place to see everybody. I think it tends to be more of a place to meet both customers, obviously, but also technology.
For sure.
Right? So you can see programmers, you can see customers from the CIO to the lowest programmer, right, in the same place.
Yeah. I mean, it's a wonderful melting pot, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's why we call it Hacker Summer Camp.
Fair enough.
Because it's really like the one time of the year that you get together with all the friends that you really only connect with virtually.
Exactly.
Right. It's also Vegas, so we tend to do a little bit more drinking, a little bit more kind of socializing, a little bit more dinners than we normally do too, I think.
And it's Pacific time, right? I mean, the day ends earlier.
That's true. It's very true, right? The emails stop a little bit earlier on
Exactly.
Pacific time.
Yeah.
So what are you hoping to kind of see this year at Blackhat?
So a few things. I mean, I want to see where everybody's going, right? So what has changed? I'd actually like to go to the same booths or the same talks that I went to a few years ago and kind of see or try to see what changed.
Right. Are they repeating the same thing, or is there some evolution that's happening there?
Exactly. So not to see what they have right now, but to try and understand the difference. I mean, it's been 2 years for me, I think, so I don't always remember everything, but
sure.
I kind of try to see the delta there.
2021 was the greatest Blackhat I've ever been to. I was a customer. There were like 27 customers that showed up.
Yep.
So everybody kind of canceled their booths and bought suites or rented space at the pool. It was so nice.
So I was actually here that year, and I remember thinking, it was the first big conference after COVID.
Yeah.
And I thought everybody's going to be here. I was really excited. Then I got here. Well, there's nobody here.
Right. It was so good. As a customer, as a vendor, I would not have liked to have been here.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because it's your cost per acquisition certainly goes way up during that.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was real nice to get like personal and one-on-one.
Exactly, more intimate. More like this small boot camp it used to be in a sense.
Yeah, it really did. It felt like Blackhat from like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Where it really was. It was like you came here because you knew what it was. You came here because it was the alt RSA.
Yeah.
You really came here because you're going to DEF CON.
Fair enough.
Right. Yeah. And it was a whole lot more personal. Yeah. Right. Almost everybody that was here 15 years ago was involved in product. Mm-hmm. And then you also had people that were involved in marketing, but it was very product-led, very engineering-led. And I think that's still true of Blackhat compared to like RSA.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I still think we've got a lot of engineering. You have a lot fewer executives that show up from like vendors. You have a lot more product people. You have a lot more services people. You have a lot more people who kind of are more boots on the ground that show up here. And then same for the audience, right?
And it's the beauty of it, right? That's why we're here.
Very much, very much. So, without getting into kind of too much commercialization, what's Armis doing at Blackhat? Like, what do you guys have planned for Blackhat?
So lots of things. I mean, we always come out big in Blackhat and RSA, but especially in Blackhat. We have our own. We have a huge Hazel Lounge, which is at the center of Mandalay Bay, which is great. So we can have meetings there. It's right there, the lobby.
It's right there by the Starbucks, right?
No. It's right there at the lobby, like the reception.
Oh,
like where you check in.
Okay.
Like right there.
Did you have it last year?
We did.
Oh yeah. Okay. I was trying to remember why I had a memory of it, and I met a friend and we sat and chatted there for an hour. It was very nice.
I think we started last year, I believe so. But I mean, it's great. It's right there in the middle. You don't need to take elevators anywhere.
Right.
You don't need to find people, right? It's right there. So that has been amazing.
Do you have an activity or anything going on in the Hazel Lounge? Like, is there a contest or something?
So I mean, it's more about drinks and sitting there, right? So it's all about the environment around that. But we are hosting some parties later on, and some drinks events and whatnot. So it's going to be a great time there.
Awesome, awesome. Any like vendor spots that you're looking to kind of see what's going on?
I'm trying to see things that are happening in our environment, right? So obviously looking at ASM, looking at any vendors that are in that environment. We always look for partnerships. One of the things that Armis is really good at is to, we don't want to boil the ocean. We don't want to do everything. We want to do, choose our scope, but make sure that our surroundings are covered by partners.
For sure.
And that's one of the places to meet and find those partners and understand, best capabilities and the best corporations.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because I contend that every organization becomes the mean when they get to a certain size.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very, very hard to run a company of 250,000 employees and have a significant or substantial percentage of those be rock stars.
Yep.
First off, there's not that many rock stars, and second, rock stars are hard to manage, especially managing at scale.
Yep.
Right? So there's a ton of kind of mega corps that either are security focused or have a large security arm.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that versus kind of what Armis is doing, right? Which is that let's talk about an ecosystem, right? How does that work with your customers?
So it works in two different ways. So on the one hand, when we're looking at Armis, we always look at what are the data sources that we need in order to show our value, and then what else do we need to partner with in order to kind of move the buck to the next stop, right? So Armis is built on asset management of asset inventory. That's the base of everything. You can secure, basically you cannot do anything unless you know what you have.
For sure.
And then we can start building more things on top of that, right? So that's the base of everything. We need to understand who are those data sources, what we're using, and those are great partnerships with so many tools around the world. But then you have all the other building blocks here.
Sure. So let's say I'm a customer,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not doing a decent job at asset management now. So
Mm-hmm.
the average organization.
Yeah.
I engage with Armis. We're talking asset management. We have an engagement. We're kind of moving things forward, and Armis, because you sit at the kind of central node of asset management and data ingestion, do you then have the ability to help me to go, hey, you don't have an ASM, or hey, you don't have a good SOAR, or hey, you were lacking in some other way,
Mm-hmm.
right? SASE would benefit you,
Exactly.
because all of your folks are using these SaaS applications.
Mm-hmm.
Do you then have the ability as a services organization to come back in and go, hey, we've noticed this is where we think you should mature? Is that part of the kind of Armis engagement?
It is, and this is where we also use our partners. So basically, I'm a mirror, right? I'm showing you what your network looks like, the way you are in. And report on all of that and basically show you the weak spots, right? What are we call it findings, but basically what you need to do. What are your next action items? And then we work together on the understanding how to actually perform those action items.
Okay.
Sometimes it's something that Armis does by itself. Sometimes it's something that you will need those partners to work with. Sometimes you'll need another tool, right? But we work with you in order to understand where to move, what is that action item. Information that's not actionable is just not helpful.
That's very true. But it's also nice that it's not like Armis is a tool that's put in place that stands kind of alone,
Mm-hmm.
right? And even as the services engagement that goes along with that to say, hey, you're kind of not left out in the cold, as it were.
Exactly,
Right.
and this is why we've actually come with we call it the suites environment. But the idea is, there are some tools that are trying to think in a verticalized way, basically saying, hey, I'm just doing this.
Sure.
Now, nobody can do everything, of course. But the way I'm looking at it, what Armis does is looking at everything that you have, so looking very wide, and obviously fixing only or working on a chunk, right? Again, can't do everything, but a deep but also wide chunk, as opposed to somebody who's choosing only a small area.
Sure.
And the idea is that I have to give you value that is wide enough to use. Otherwise, you will need 10 more like me. And that just doesn't work. That just doesn't scale.
Sure. So let's move out of Armis a little bit. There's a few technologies that are kind of a little bit front and center, and I'll say that they're not the one. I want to talk a little bit about technologies like 5G or IoT or kind of AI. AI is a little beat to
buzzword,
death,
right?
and buzzwordy. So let's hold that one. Like, what are your thoughts on 5G or IoT as it involves? Like, are you encountering it a lot in customers? How are customers seeing 5G and IoT as kind of two separate things? What do you think people should be cautious of or aware of as they start looking at those things?
And that's a great question, because 7 years ago when I joined Armis, we talked about IoTs, and usually the responses I got were, yeah, that's very interesting, that's very important. We can't deal with this quite yet. Let's talk again next year. Hey.
Well, it's almost like you and I talked 7 years ago when you joined, because that's what I said many times.
Exactly. I mean, almost nobody said, yeah, that's not interesting. Right. People were interested, but just not now. And I think now is now. The problem is the same one, right? Everybody has so many devices, right? The explosion of devices, and IoT is a huge chunk of that, right? You connect everything. The camera, the printer, the BMS network, your elevator, your air conditioner, right? Your water heater, whatever. Fish tank, right? We're in Vegas, we have to say fish tank. But basically, okay, what's next, right? The problem that we used to have then is, okay, great, you're showing me 1 million vulnerabilities for those IoTs, you're showing me 1 million problems, what are you going to do about it?
Sure.
I think the market matured to the point in which now you can fix it. So suddenly you want to see what is wrong because you can actually do something about it. And this is what we started saying, right? You can't, in the old, 7 years ago, if I told you that this IoT device is vulnerable or has issues or whatnot, say, okay, what are you going to do about it? Well, you kind of need to replace it.
Yeah, that was kind of the attitude, right? You were wholly dependent on a mostly disinterested vendor to produce a firmware update or a fix, and we really, microsegmentation was hard. Exactly. Reducing the blast radius was hard. Right? We didn't really have that ability. Also, the IoT device probably wasn't managed by IT. It was probably managed by operations that at best had a tenuous relationship with the technology teams that included security. And 7 years ago, security didn't report the way security reports now.
Exactly.
Security wasn't as much or as frequently a board level conversation as it is now.
Exactly.
Right? So yeah, that's a really good point, right? The world has changed, and thus that whole conversation has changed around IoT, the importance, and then the industry has matured so much.
Yeah. Everybody understands the security risks there, and understand that if they don't fix it, nobody else will.
Right.
And once you see all the attacks that happen through IoTs, then you have to fix it, right? It's not an option. You have to fix it. You have to report to the board how you're tackling that problem, right? Or else it becomes a resume generating event. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
My least favorite of the events are the resume generating ones. So let's talk a little bit like this kind of same view on 5G, right? So like an evolution, a newer evolution of technology, right? Are you seeing are customers talking to you about 5G? What are they saying?
So it's basically the next phase of those IoTs, right? So if some years ago, when you talked about, well, it was 4G and 3G then, but it doesn't matter. The same idea for IoTs that were cellular, right, were vending machines.
Sure.
So every time you talk to somebody about cellular devices, right, cellular IoTs, oh, you're talking about my vending machines. Okay, great. Which is a problem, which needs a solution, et cetera, et cetera, but it was kind of small.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's different because it's so easy and cheap, and did I say easy? To just plug 5G on something and that's it. Heck, we even use it as, we're not supposed to talk about Armis, but we even use our servers, right, can run on 5G because why not?
For sure.
Yeah. So people are asking us about it. Basically, the question they ask, right? Sometimes they phrase it differently, but the question they ask is, hey, what's the difference between my 5G network to my non-5G network? And the way I'm looking at it, I'm simplifying. But the way I'm looking at it, there's no difference. What's the difference?
Ooh.
So let's say you have a, but I'll tell you what, let me explain. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
So I'll compare two devices, right? I have a laptop running Wi-Fi, right? Just running on Wi-Fi, connecting to this access point. And I have this other laptop or device, whatever, running 5G, going to that 5G antenna. Okay. So where is it going after that 5G antenna? Well, from that 5G antenna, it goes to the 5G network, to whatever, right? We're still at the cellular network part.
For sure.
And at one point, it gets back to the network.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure. I mean, it's just,
it's kind of
whether it's
longer.
5G or Wi-Fi, if it's private, the goal is just to get packets on your network.
Exactly.
So there is no difference from the perspective of getting packets on the network. They both accomplish the same thing. The goals of both are the same.
It's just a few more hops, right? So with Wi-Fi, right, you go to the access point and then you're on your network.
Yeah.
With 5G, you go to the antenna and then you have a few more hops and then you're in your network.
Yeah.
Right? So that's it. It's a bit longer, if you will, right?
Sure.
It's
Management
is
is different.
Yeah, of course.
Like I don't really recommend, certainly in the mid-market and smaller, I don't recommend anyone manage their own 5G network.
Oh no.
Right. And then architecturally, when you get to the nuts and bolts, it's different. But the goal is still the same, and it still accomplishes the same thing, certainly in the private space.
Exactly.
Right. The interesting part about 5G for me is density of devices is tremendously different. Right. Where you're really in triple digits and low triple digits for Wi-Fi access point, right? For saturation there, you're in tens of thousands potentially for 5G
going to
devices.
a single antenna. And even then, there's all kinds of other tricks. You can actually put even more than that, right? Joining to like a split antenna or whatever.
Yeah. If you start,
if you really try to manage your network.
Yeah. It's great. I mean, you're likely to run out of backhaul before you're likely to run out of antenna space.
Fair enough, yeah.
Which is the opposite of what you get with Wi-Fi.
Exactly.
Right? With Wi-Fi, I've got plenty of backhaul.
Yeah.
I run out of slices of that pie. And then you get into really interesting things with 5G, like being able to set up QoS to an application level that is simply impossible to do on Wi-Fi, right?
Exactly.
And band prioritization. And then, it's one thing if you're in like a warehouse, propagation and everything, but we're getting a little bit afield here. It's not a 5G podcast. So for those who this is likely to go after Blackhat, but for those who are going to show up next year for RSA or Blackhat, what do you recommend individuals do? Like those that come from a company wanting to learn about what's going on in the space. Like, do you have any kind of tips and tricks, where to start, what to do, what to miss, what to not miss, that sort of thing?
I would say two things. So first of all, of course, look at the lectures or the talks, right? There are always good ideas there. But then go to the talks given by vendors, and I'll tell you why. So, being a vendor, and yet, bear with me, I'll tell you why. When we, and I'll give you our booth as an example, right? In our booth, we have, oh my God, there's a long Excel of talks. There's like literally a talk every 15 minutes. Different people are doing different things, but they're not pitch decks, right? They are talking about something interesting in the industry, right? And just choose those, and in most vendors do the same. So in most booths, it will be the same idea. If you listen to those, you kind of see, yes, you'll get some commercials, you'll get some things from each vendor, good, but you'll kind of see where people are going, right? You kind of see where the industry is going there.
They're also more up to date, right?
Exactly.
Like you can't, it's really hard because of the way the call for presentations work to change your presentation 3 minutes before you go up.
Yeah.
But those 15-minute lightning talks, if something happened that morning, you'll often see it reflected in that lightning talk.
Exactly.
Right. So I agree, those are really interesting. The other thing I like about them is because there's always 12 of them happening. If you sit down to one and it's not interesting, you can just get up and go to the next one.
Exactly.
But if you sit down and it is interesting, you can also generally just walk right up to the person and have a conversation immediately after, and that's almost impossible in a large room.
Exactly. Or even watch it again, or call your friend to watch it again because hey, it's coming again tomorrow or in 3 hours, something like that, right? They're kind of repeating themselves. So,
Sure. What do you think is worth just skipping?
Just skipping.
Other than the parties. Some of the parties are a little, like, it gets a little rough, 5 days of parties in a row.
Well, I would say it's worth skipping walking outside.
That's true.
You know, it really depends. I don't think there's anything that you like, really want to skip. I think it's all, skip the places that you went to last year. As simple as that.
Any kind of emerging tech that you're interested in seeing here on the floor and seeing how people are implementing it?
We said we're not going to say the words AI, right?
I mean, I think we kind of have to talk about it because there's good and bad, right?
It's there, yeah.
AI is also being used by the opposition, attackers, far more than I would like, but that's kind of what they do, right? They're really fast to adopt tools, especially while they're open source. But at the same time, are you seeing, outside of you guys, are you seeing defenders that have a really good approach to AI? Like, what would you say is a good kind of use of AI from a defense standpoint, where it helps to build trust, not just make things faster?
So actually, we have launched just a few months ago a whole solution that looks exactly at that. So what we want to say here is, and actually that's one of my lightning talks in our booth. So basically, when you're looking at, as you said, the attackers are using AI, and they are using AI well. And when I'm talking to a network, right, to a customer that has a network, I would say, keep in mind the attacker knows your network better than you do.
Yeah.
That's my baseline. That's, I start from there, and if I'm wrong, it's better. But most cases, they know it better than you do. Okay, so how are you protecting something you don't even know is there when somebody else does know that it's there, right? Except hire him to tell you what you have, right?
That's true.
So actually, that's the whole thing of what we're doing. So we would actually monitor the dark web using AI, but actually using AI, not just using a few SQL queries and calling it AI, right? Actually using AI and follow the dark web, understand what is actually going to happen months before it does, because we will be part, or will listen to, being part of the initiation process. So let's say there is an attack that's going to happen in September. When did they start preparing it, right? It wasn't August.
April.
It was April, January, whatever. Depends on the attack, obviously, but it's been months. And as much as we talk among ourselves, and we have groups, and we have people share, etc., they do it more.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean,
so when you follow that, you can actually understand what things will happen way before that. And what we do is we automatically, AI again, but automatically create environments that will mimic the destinations of those attacks.
Oh, interesting. So you're using AI to auto-generate honeypots,
basically, yeah,
that are
mimicking
a fake version, a virtual version of the real environment to try to throw the attackers off.
Exactly. So let's say there's an attack being planned on a factory of this type, whatever, right? This specific type. Great, my AI will auto-generate one of the virtual factory just like that. We'll wait for it to be attacked. We'll put it in strategic location.
Sure.
Wait for it to be attacked.
Right. Then you can do a pattern analysis and an attack analysis and the investigation.
Exactly.
With no sense of danger, right? Because they're not
all
attacking
virtual,
anything that's real.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
literally the same thing that everybody will do once attacks actually come to be.
Right.
But before.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Have you seen this in the real world, and are you seeing a response from it?
Many places. I mean, we have specific examples that I will be showing at the lightning session, but basically real vulnerabilities that CISA has already declared, right? And we will actually show you when they declared it, right? Because it was actually attacked. So we see when it was attacked, when they shared it with the public, and months before when we actually saw it and analyzed it and published our information about it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So in average, that's between 3 to 9 months before CISA.
Yeah, I would expect it to be that.
Yeah.
Right. It makes me wonder, like, how valuable that would have been for the Snowflake right? Because Snowflake wasn't really an attack against Snowflake. They just found a particular weakness that Snowflake customers had allowed to happen, right? And then went, hey, there's a way for us to do this. There's a way for us to pivot. There's a way for us to do a standard kind of credential compromise.
And I'll use another buzzword. Sorry, I have to. Log4j. Not going to talk about Log4j, but just think about Log4j on Christmas. But what is the one thing that you, as a CISO or as the engineer working for that CISO, would have really wanted about Log4j?
I would like to have known where it was in my network, more than anything else.
Well, actually, you would want, so two things. Yes, you want to know where it was, which is great because then you can spend time fixing as opposed to spend time finding and then fixing, right? Asset inventory, why it's so important, and understand what you have. Actually, what you wanted is to know about it in September.
Well, sure.
And have 3 months until it hits.
Sure.
Right? That's the beauty. Hey, buy time. What else are we buying here, right? We're buying time and doing it in leisure as opposed to, oh my God, everything has to happen today on Christmas.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to be able to predict the fire is coming and get the fire hoses ready, right?
Yeah.
We don't get that opportunity too terribly often. Well, this has been great. So with that, thank you very much. This has been another episode of DDT. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. If you'd like to be on the episode, if you'd like to see someone on the episode, please let us know. And I hope you join us again for our next episode. Thank you, and have a good day.